And there we go. Here we are live again. I'm going to go back to live mode. Here we go. This is, of course, Final Cut TV. I appreciate everybody tuning in today. This is our third day in a row. We're back here talking about, specifically, there's a couple of things I want to talk about today. Specifically about the Mac Studio, the new Mac, desktop Mac that Apple announced on Tuesday. And I've had some other thoughts about that going forward. Let me just turn this up a little bit. There we go. Going forward, I have some thoughts about if I was in the market, would I buy, if I was in the market for a new Mac, would I buy a Mac Studio, or would I wait for a Mac Mini or a new iMac or even the new Mac Pro? Now, the new Mac Pro is coming out, who knows? I'd be pleasantly surprised if it came out in 2022. But I think the Mac Pro, since it's the most complicated and they want to get it right, because even though Phil said, can't innovate my ass when he did the other trash can Mac Pro, that never appealed to me going forward. Hey, look, I have a new camera today. Look what I have. It's the cat room. Look at that. Let me just change this. There we go. Yeah, it's the cat room. No cats right now, but I figured I'd give everybody a different view today going forward. So, leaning towards waiting for Mac Pro. So, Eric, what do you need the Mac Pro for? I'm just curious. Because even though I bought the 2019 Mac Pro, at this point, I'm not looking forward to getting a Mac Pro again. The MacBook Pro that I have with the M1 Max chip is absolutely a fantastic machine, and I'm really, really impressed with it. So I really don't need the Mac Pro this time. I bought it. I didn't buy the high end one. I got the one that was about, I think I paid about $9,500, $9,600, something like that. And then at that time, the December when it came out in 2019, Apple was giving 6% back on if you bought it with the Apple Card. So I got 6% off of that cash back when I bought that. Now you get 3%, but that one time you get 6%. So 8K red, mostly theatrical releases, absolutely. So if that's the case, especially if you're doing multi-track, multicam, then that would make complete sense. However, if you needed a Mac today, what would you buy? If you had to buy one today, what would you buy? Mac Studio? We're going to talk about that specifically because we have an article that came out talking about the M2 Mac Mini. And I'm wondering how many people would opt for the M2 Mac Mini. How many people would opt for that rather than the Mac Studio if they had the option? Let me pull that up here. Because it just happened to come up today. Let me pull that up. Let me see. Where is that? I posted it this morning in a couple of groups because I thought the timing was very interesting, that it came out like 2 days after the, here it is. 2 days after the Mac Studio was introduced. I really like the Mac Studio. However, it does seem like it's a little bit clunky, isn't it? Just a little bit. It's like a pure block of Mac horsepower, of unadulterated Mac horsepower is what I look at it as. And it has everything that you need. It has plenty of ports, plenty of in and out support for video and all that for displays. But it also has a giant fan. The fan system. It's really, really, really extensive. It's like two-thirds of the dimension of the whole thing is for cooling. And that's for that M1 Ultra chip. Is that what it is? I've seen an article on new Intel GPU being used in Mac Pro in the works. I would be surprised. New Intel GPU. Can the M1 and the Intel GPU, can they work together? I don't know for a fact. Ultra, no monitor, already have XDR. There you go. To be honest, if I had the option, I would get them both. There you go. If you had the option. I'm just wondering, for people that were waiting for, although my eyes are leaning towards a new MacBook Pro, that's what I have, and I'm very satisfied with it. Brandon says, my prediction is that the Mac Mini refresh will have an M1 Pro option, so the whole range is covered. I think I'm just going to say that the new Mac Mini is going to have the M2 chip. They have the M2 chip. Didn't they say yesterday that they're done with the M2? There's no more M1s coming out. This is the last one. So here's what I'm thinking. Apple has a Mac Fall event, right? It has an event in the fall, typically the last couple of years, that is dedicated to the Mac. So last year they introduced the MacBook Pro, the one I have now. And the year before that, it was the M1 14-inch MacBook Pro in the original Mac Mini. So the Mac Mini will be 2 years old in the fall. They haven't abandoned the Mac Mini. Nobody said that they've abandoned that. Nobody said that the Mac Studio is taking its place. But the fact that the Mac Studio has to have such a massive, massive fan on it, somehow that bothers me. And I'm not sure if that's mostly for the Ultra, for the high end, and they just kept it in for the low end or not. But I don't think they've abandoned the Mac Mini, right? The Mac Mini is still viable. Let's look at this article. So here we go. So the Mac Mini, this is what this said. Next Mac Mini will have an M2 and M2 Pro Apple Silicon chip options. So let me go to the original audio. Let me go to the original article. Not the original audio. So here it is. Updated Mac Mini to have versions with M2 and M2 Pro chips. So here's what I'm wondering. If people had the option right now, today, between an M2 Mac Mini and a Mac Studio, how would that be divided, do you think? Do you think a lot of people would go for the Mac Mini? The Mac Mini looks like a fantastic machine. Now, to those of you who have the Mac Mini, does it have a fan? And I guess it does. I guess it does have a fan. Does it come on very often? I will find the article and share it, although the main difference in the Apple Silicon versus a PC computer is the way that the boards are designed. It would be interesting if they could combine the two. That would make more sense for the Mac Pro, wouldn't it? I don't think Apple will do discrete GPUs. I think the Mac Pro will have an M1 Ultra or maybe M2 of them and a bunch of slots for things like Avid cards. Okay, so PCIe. I found out that, yes, the M1 architecture does support PCIe. Somebody asked that yesterday in the stream. It does support PCIe, so they could do PCIe slots with an M1. I have no doubt in my mind that the Mac Pro is not going to have an M1 anything. Okay, the Mac Pro is going to have the M2 chip, hands down. The M2 Max, whatever the heck it's going to be. They're not going to hobble the Mac Pro with an M1 Max or an M1 Ultra. There's no way. First off, I don't think it's coming out. I'd be surprised, pleasantly surprised, if it came out in 2022. I'm thinking it might be they might show it at WWDC, which means it could come out in December if they follow what they've done in the past, or it'll come out in the spring or the summer next year. The Mac Pro is the most difficult Mac that they have, and it's a little bit complicated. So we'll probably have hardware this year. Well, they've never, I don't think they released the hardware at WWDC. I think they just introduced the hardware. For example, in 2019, they introduced a 2019 Mac Pro. They showed us the Mac Pro at WWDC. It came out 6 months later in December. In 2017, they introduced the iMac Pro. 2017 came out later in the year, in the fall, November, whenever it came out. So they certainly can introduce a pro-level machine, although the Mac Studio is certainly a pro-level machine. It's absolutely a pro-level, the power that thing has. It's just that I don't know if that really fulfills the market, all the marketplace that Apple has. Two things. I think there's going to be a new iMac. I don't think that the M1 24-inch version of the iMac is as far as Apple's going to take the iMac. Absolutely, I don't believe that. Now, whether they go up to a 27 or not, or even larger for the iMac, that remains to be seen. I don't really have a strong idea of what they're going to do there. But it would make sense, since the new display is 27 inches, they already got the display technology, that a new iMac would come out with an M2 chip. Okay? They're not going to put that M1 Ultra in an iMac with those giant fans that thing needs. I don't see how that's going to work. So Apple is not done with the iMac. There will be an update, a refresh to the iMac. I'm going to say it's going to be the M2. I don't know about the 24 versus 27 versus 32. size screen. That I don't know about. But I absolutely think that there's going to be a refresh to the iMac. That would be perfect time next fall at the Apple event for the Macintosh. Now, once again, the Mac Mini as it exists today, it's an M1. Let me just pull that up. I have it here. Mac Mini. So here's the Mac Mini. I don't think sorry, I got the audio. I don't think for a second that they are off. They are done with the Mac Mini. Mac Mini, new guts, more glory. Look at the price point, $699. That's a great price point. Supercharged with the Apple M1 chip. I can absolutely see this done next fall, supercharged with the Apple M2 chip. I would absolutely see that happening. Absolutely. Excuse me. I had a cough there. So this is the interesting thing about the Mac Mini. This is perfect comment. Eric Emmerich says, isn't the Studio just a Mac Mini on steroids? Yes, it is like a Mac Mini on steroids, and it's definitely a pro-level machine, but it doesn't take the place of the Mac Mini. So if you had a Mac Mini on one hand with the M2 chip and the Mac Studio on the other hand with the M1 Ultra, so the M2 chip is going to be a little more advanced. The M1 Ultra is going to be a incredible lot of horsepower. But if you don't need all that horsepower, then the Mac Mini is still a viable option for you. They're not going to put the Mac Mini out with an M1 chip. They're not going to do that. So they started the low level, the M1. Then they went to the M1 Pro and the M1 Max, and now the M1 Ultra. I expect the same kind of a roadmap, starting with the M2 in the Mac Mini and an iMac. That's what I expect. That's the lower end of the M2. It requires less power and less heat. Doesn't require those gigantic fans that the Mac Studio has. Ryan says, I would guess that's where MacBook Pro and Mac Mini gets updated to M2, and maybe the Apple also explains Max, Pro Max, and Ultra versions of the M2. So I am looking forward. I'm looking forward in a year or 18 months to the next version of my MacBook Pro, the M2 version. I'm absolutely looking forward to that. Did they discontinue the Intel Mini yesterday with the Studio? No. No, they did not. Here it is. Oh, the Intel. Oh, I'm sorry. The Intel one. Maybe. That I don't know. I think the M1. Do you have an option for the Intel Mac Mini tech specs? Let's try to buy it and see if we have an option. I don't see the option for the Intel version. I don't see the option for the Intel version. It's just the M1. But once again, this is 18 months old at this point. Mac Mini is 18 months old. It came out in October, November of 2020. So it'll be 2 years old in the fall. But I think, doesn't it only have 2 Thunderbolt ports? That's what would drive me crazy. I think. I'm not positive of that, but it seems like it. Now, to those of you who have this, a price point, here we go. Here's what we have right here. Yeah, it has USB-A too, I see. So it has 2 Thunderbolt USB 4 ports. These are not Thunderbolt 4, okay? These are not Thunderbolt 4. Apple purposely used this confusing language, and people thought these were Thunderbolt 4. They absolutely are not. They are Thunderbolt 3, USB 4. These are. Does it make much difference? Not that much. I mean, the speed really isn't that much. HDMI, Ethernet, and then USB, 2 USB-A, and the headphone jack. So the new one will certainly have Thunderbolt 4. Absolutely have Thunderbolt 4 going forward. So it only has 2 Thunderbolt 4s, though. That's what I don't know if I could get along with 2 of those. But anyway, this is going to be 2 years old in the fall. 2 years old in the fall, which means what the heck? Obviously, they're not making them anymore. Why did that get turned off again? I don't know how that got turned off. It's like turned itself off. Sorry about that. I have the M1 Mini and added OWC Thunderbolt hubs. Yes, I understand that, but it only has 2. I have 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports on my MacBook Pro, plus an HDMI, plus they don't have to be used for power. It has a separate power, the MagSafe, so that doesn't have to take up one of the slots. And I have the dock on top of that. It's really weird. I don't know why that got muted, but it did for some reason. Sorry about that. That's completely on me. I'll keep an eye on the good old audio meters. I can tell when that's happening. Let me just turn this off. So this is what I'm looking at right now. So I have to pay attention to right here. As long as I see the green levels, I know you're getting audio in the stream. I don't know what happened. Somehow it got muted when I switched scenes, and I don't know how it did that. I'm not sure why it did, but this is what I pay attention to when I'm live streaming to make sure I have audio going out to the stream. This is my screen. This is my 34-inch ultra-wide monitor. This is what that is. And this is Ecamm Live is what I'm using. They just come up with a brand new version today. How long do you think Rosetta 2 will last for? I think you got another year or two, maybe a little bit longer. I think this next version of the OS, which comes out in September, might be the last Intel version natively. It's Intel. It's both Intel and M1. But I don't know for a fact that they said they're going to do 2 years ago. This will be the last version, perhaps, but they're going to gradually phase it out. The Macs and, of course, Final Cut at some point will be M1 only. So at that point, you'll have to freeze your machine if you want to stay on the Intel version of the OS and of Mac. So does it change source audio when switching scenes? Yes, I can set up each scene with its own audio, but I don't think I did that. I mean, I have the audio on. See, the cat room has audio on it. There's one of our cats. That's Miss Amanda Jones in the forward. The cats like this front room because the sun comes in there in the morning. So we got a couple of cat castles and plenty of places for the cats to sit. Now, I muted that intentionally so you didn't hear me cough. Now I'm checking it now to make sure the audio is there. So the new Thunderbolt hubs turn one port into 3 Thunderbolt 4 hubs, but I wonder if it splits bandwidth across all 3. But I do know that the amount of ports is tied to the chip. M1 Pro can support 4. Yeah, the Pro can and the Max, but the M1 only had 2. Only 2 Thunderbolt ports. All the original M1s. The iMac, right? The M1 iMac has 2 ports. Mac Mini and the 14-inch MacBook Pro only had 2 Thunderbolt ports. So the M1 Pro and the M1 Max have up to 4. The M1 Ultra is 2 M1 Max, so they have whatever, 6, I don't know, 4, 5, 6. What state are you in? I'm in Maryland, right outside of Baltimore and Washington. No, I got audio now. Audio. I should have audio. Let me just look here. Live demo mode. I have audio here. It's showing audio for me. I think audio is okay. It's right there. Showing up for me anyway. Hopefully it's the same as you guys. He says, never mind my computer. So that's the combination is you always got to make sure it's not somebody's computer or something, but that's not a problem. That's not a problem. So I have to just pay attention. I like to look at you guys in the audience, but I got to also look down at the audio and make sure it didn't get muted. You know, it's software. Weird things happen. So here's the thing. Here's what I'm talking about. So we have, let me pull this up. Let's go back to this page. This is the article that started, I checked the audio, it's there. This is the article that started me thinking about what's going on with the Mac Mini. Mac Mini to have 2 versions with M2 and M2 Pro chip. There you go. So they're going to have a baseline, probably a $699 still with the M1, and then they'll have an upgraded one with the M Pro. I like this form factor a lot. The thinness of it. Does anybody have a Mac Mini? Do you have fans in that thing? Do they get loud? Look, they even have the code name. Code named J3, whatever, JR73, the new Mac Mini, will be powered by the M2 chip, which is Apple's next generation entry-level chip for Macs and iPads. M2 will represent the first major upgrade to Apple's M family of chips since the introduction of the M1 in 2020. So don't you think it's time? Don't you think it's time for a new refresh of the Mac Mini? So I guess the question is, since there's going to be, we know there's going to be a refresh of it, right? We know that's going to happen. That's not even in question. They're going to refresh the iMac. They're going to refresh the Mac Mini. Absolutely, going to refresh both of those. After they do those will be maybe the entry-level M1 chips. Then maybe they'll get to the MacBook Pro. The MacBook Pro is only 6 months old. The iMac is 1 year old. It came out last spring, if I'm not mistaken. The Mac Mini is 18 months old. It came out almost 18 months ago. I wonder if Apple will keep the silicone chips like they are moving forward with them now, but with other things end users like to play with and upgrade back in. I have the 2018 Intel, doesn't get loud, but the graphics are horrible if you try. Okay, there you go. So that's one of the things they have to improve, right? They have to improve the graphics in the next Mac Mini. But the $699 price point is incredible. The Mac Studio price point is $2,000. There's a big difference between those two. So I'm just wondering if you had a choice today, Mac Pro, the Mac Studio, or with an M1 chip, whatever version, or the Mac Mini with the newer M2 chip, what would people do? Would people maybe opt for the Mac Mini? I mean, I guess it depends on the performance and what level of performance you have. I've scaled back my performance requirement. I do not need what the M1 Ultra offers. I don't need that. If I was buying a desktop today and I wanted to get the Mac Studio, I would get a mid-level one. I would not get that double chip thing. That double chip thing just seems peculiar to me. I'm not sure exactly. I understand what they did, and they have the interconnect, whatever that interconnect thing is, but I would not get that one. I don't need that. Yes, they did say that, but that doesn't, yes, they did. So they absolutely said there's only one Mac to update to the M1 chip. Only one Mac left to update the M1 chip. That's the Mac Pro. The iMac's already updated to the M1 chip. Doesn't mean it's going to stay at the M1 chip going forward. It's already there in the M1 architecture. So the iMac is not going to be stationary. It's not going to be stagnated at the M1 chip for the rest of its life. Neither is the Mac Mini. What's the next logical step? The next logical step is the M2, the entry-level M2, not necessarily the Pro or the what do I have? The Max, but the entry-level M2. For both of those, they might step it up to the Pro or the Max. I don't know what the heating requirements are. I would expect the MacBook Pro to be the first one to get the M1 Pro and the M1 Max, the same as this time. But maybe they'll offer it in that article, it says they're going to offer two versions of it. M2 Pro Mac Mini, according to 9 to 5 sources, Apple has plans to introduce high-end versions of the current Mac Mini. It said they had plans to introduce it with the M1 Pro and M1 Max chips, but they probably scrapped to make for the Mac Studio. It says, this time Apple has also been working on another new Mac Mini, codenamed J474, that features the M2 Pro chip. That is very interesting. That's what I'm talking about. The M1 Pro for the Mac Mini. Mac Studio for sure. The Mac Studio looks like a great machine. I'm not a fan of those. I'm not a fan of those big fans. That's the only thing that I would say. The M1 chip has great graphics, an iMac, an easy drive. It's 4.5K display plus a, what does that say? Plus a 4K external monitor with ease. There you go. iMac could get M2 Pro as an option, but I don't think we'll see an iMac called Pro. I thought that Apple said they discontinued the iMac Pro, the Intel version of that. Don't know what that means as far as a new version. I don't think they have to call it an iMac Pro anymore. If they come out with a Pro machine, they would call it the iMac with the M1 Pro or something. Although they might still do a Pro iMac, the iMac will be updated. It's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. It's going to get the M2 chip. So is the Mac Mini. They're both going to get the M2 chip. Maybe later this year. Maybe in the fall. I don't know what they're going to do with the iMac screen, though. Are they going to increase the 24-inch to the 27-inch or even larger? That's what people are saying. I think they want to sell their studio monitors. Yes, I think they do too. I'm not, but they also wanted to sell the original trash can Mac, right? They didn't sell many of those. I mean, they sold some, but they didn't sell like maybe they expected. That was not a good design. Right from the beginning, I'm thinking, this is weird. This is like the Cube, and the Cube was also visually appealing. It looked nice, but it was limited in its power at the time. I remember looking at that and saying, man, I'd just like to get one of those, but it doesn't have the power that the regular desktop has. I think no Pro or Max chip in the new iMac, just M2. I think they're going to start with the M2 chip in both the Mac Mini and the iMac. But the question is, will they update the iMac screen back to the 27 or the 32-inch? I think they will. I think the 24-inch is replacing the 21-inch, so they don't have a replacement for the 27 yet. So absolutely, the iMac and the Mac Mini are both going to be M2 chips. So let's do something else. Now, if you've been watching these live streams, back in February, this is what I said. In February the 17th, March, April are going to be the 2 months to watch out for. As far as Final Cut Pro updates. So 2022 March, 2022 April. And the reason I'm saying April is because of NAB coming up. Even if Apple's not going to be there, they put out ProRes RAW around NAB. We are going to see a new version of Final Cut Pro. Apple will do some kind of a update prior to NAB. So I said that back in February the 18th, whenever it was, 17th or 18th, that Apple is going to come up with a new version of Final Cut Pro for NAB. It looks that's exactly what's going to be happening. And the reason I say that is twofold. Number one is they pre-announced a new version of iMovie, right? They did. Where is that? They pre-announced a new version of iMovie, which is right here. They pre-announced the new version of iMovie, okay? Turn your videos into movie magic, okay? Look, coming in April. Coming in April. That's what they said. It's coming next month. Movie magic, instant movies, styled and edited, that's magic. Magic Movie lets you instantly create styled, edited videos, complete with titles, transitions, even music. That seems like an iMovie feature. And then storyboards. Storyboards. Design your story shot by shot. This is coming to iMovie in April. They pre-announced it. It's coming in April. Right? Yes, they pre-announced it at the event the other day. They also pre-announced a version of Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro 10.6.2 was on the Mac Studio page. They called it a pre-release version of Final Cut Pro 10.6.2. Now, let's see. iMovie is coming out in April. What else is in April? Oh, NAB. Well, iMovie doesn't appear at NAB. I've never seen iMovie appear at NAB before. It's not what NAB is, National Association of Broadcasters. That's not iMovie. That's not iMovie territory, but Final Cut Pro. I said in February that the update to Final Cut Pro that we're expecting is going to come out before NAB. So whether that's a week before, whether that's the week of, don't know, but it'll create buzz. If they release a nice version of Final Cut Pro 10.6.2, Apple's already pre-announced it. They said it's a pre-release version of Final Cut Pro 10.6.2. Since iMovie is coming out in April, that's when I'm thinking the Final Cut version is going to come out at the same time. NAB is the point. Why wouldn't you, if you're a marketing person, release a version of Final Cut Pro a day before, 2 days before, the first day of NAB, release a brand new version of Final Cut with new features and things, and it creates buzz all through NAB. Hey, there's this new version of Final Cut Pro out. Do you guys have it? Have you seen it? Etc. It's free advertising. It's free advertising. Even a week before they could do it. So anytime between now and the next month, the new version of Final Cut, the closer to NAB they release it, the more beneficial it is for publicity for the new version of Final Cut. That's what I said back in February, and I think that's going to turn out to be accurate. M1 Mini for me has a 42-inch HD for a monitor, has an awesome picture in its Vizio. They call you yet, Richard, to tell you when you get 10.6.2? I just told you, you're going to get it before NAB. Between now and NAB time is when you're going to get it. That's exactly what's going to happen. I'm pretty sure of that, pretty confident of that. So this version of iMovie certainly looks interesting. I mean, the iMovie team's happening. Cinematic mode, of course, we know about that. Final Cut got that in 10.6.0, but the new features, and it does, just because they showed these two features does not mean coming in April. There it says, coming in April right here. That's what they said at the event. Coming next month. That's next month. Magic Movie coming in April. These are not, iMovie is not for NAB. That's not what iMovie is for. Final Cut Pro is for NAB. Final Cut Pro. If they have these features in Final Cut or new features in 10.6.2 and they release it approximately when NAB, but even between now and NAB, the closer to NAB they release it, the more buzz it will create at NAB. And it's free, right? Apple doesn't even pay for it. It's free buzz. Why not take care of that? I'm so ready for a big upgrade. Does 10.6.2 sound like a big upgrade, though? Well, remember when we got 10.4.4? 10.4.4 was a big upgrade. We got that at the Creative Summit in 2018? Yeah, 2018. 10.4.4 was a big feature upgrade. Now, compared to 10.5 and 10.6, a big feature upgrade could have 4 new features because those 10.5 and 10.6 didn't have hardly anything. So they only had a couple. Here, I'll give you a couple of features. So 10.6.2, I'm counting on it having some features, but 4 features, 5 features, 6 features, that's fine. Now, bug fixes, of course, and continuous optimization, of course. Some people like to say that optimization is a feature. It's not a feature to me. That should be automatic. Every update should be optimized. Every app developer, when they put a new update out, should automatically be optimized. That's not a feature to me. You can, if you like to think of it as a feature, that's fine. It's not to me. Of course they should be optimizing it every time. Bug fix and optimization should be automatic with any update. So compared to 10.5 and 10.6, if they gave us 4 new features in 10.6.2 or more, I would say that's a success. I would say they're getting back on track. But don't count things that the audience, that your editors aren't asking for as features. Okay? Magic Movie is fine, but your editors aren't asking for that. The pro editors are asking for other things, like dupe detection. You know what they're asking for. We have a long list. Give us the features that pros want, and you can add something like Magic Movie if you wanted to, or storyboarding if you wanted to. But don't just give us those and think we're going to be satisfied. 3 years now since 10.4.9, which was the last really cool feature update. I mean, yeah, 10.5 was for the M1 chip. I understand that, but what about all the Intel editors? And when 10.6 came out, okay, you gave one feature. Big feature? Yes. Tracking is a big feature. But the other feature, cinematic editing, is only for iPhone 13 people who have iPhone 13s. Did I mind that? No, I didn't mind that. I mean, I have an iPhone 13 right here, so I didn't mind it. But people, I don't think all the editors have iPhone 13, so they only got one feature in 10.6 so far. So 10.6.2, this is what I'm thinking. It's going to be out before NAB. The closer that gets to NAB, the more buzz it creates at NAB. That's what I'm hoping for. If I go to NAB, right now I'm going, unless anything changes. If I go to NAB, I'm looking for Final Cut Pro stuff. So having a buzz at NAB would be great, don't you think? iMovie for OS had storyboards a couple of years now. I think the pro apps have been getting some attention, GarageBand, Logic, Final Cut Pro, Compressor, and Motion. Why does it say coming in April? Why does it say coming in April if they've had it for years? Right there, it says coming in April. Storyboards, design your story shot by shot. Oh, you're saying it's on the iPad version. That's what you're saying. It's on the iOS version. Now it's coming to both versions. I see. I see what you're saying. Jason says, lest we forget Keynote, numbers and pages. It really makes sense when we think about it, but only Apple really knows what's going on. Absolutely. Of course. The Magic Movie idea definitely concerns me as a lower level feature that will show up in 10.6.2. If they want to put it in 10.6.2, that's fine. But don't count that as a feature that pro editors want. Give us, pro editors, the features, some of the features we want, and on top of that, you can do the Magic Movie thing. But don't give us that and say, hey, there's your feature. Here's your feature for you. No, that's not what we want. That just makes people mad. When is your best guess for the M2 Mac Mini release date? I think that Apple is going to have a fall Mac event. They had one in 2020, and they had one in 2021. In 2020, they released the first M1 Macs, the 14-inch MacBook or MacBook Pro, and the original Mac Mini. That was in 2020. In 2021, they released my MacBook Pro. Those are both fall Mac events. The iPhone event's in September. Sometimes there's an iPad event in October or something. or sometimes the Mac event is October. I think they're going to have a Mac event in late October, sometime in October, and they'll release a brand new Mac Mini with the M2 chips, maybe an iMac with the M2 chip, and maybe a new 14-inch MacBook Pro with the M2 chip, because they're going to be, the Mac Mini and a 14-inch MacBook Pro are both going to be 2 years old in October, so they're definitely due for a refresh. They're not going to put the M1 Max in it. That wouldn't make any sense. That's not really much of a refresh. They're going to put the M2. Lower power consumption, it's the entry-level M2, which is going to have new features, et cetera, et cetera. Hey, look what I have back here. Look, I brought these back to life. This is my original iPod, click wheel. I charged them up with my MacBook Pro and one of the special cables and stuff. I have 3 of these, a black one, video one, and one other one. I just figured I'd bring them back to life. I used to listen to my stuff on this all the time. Of course, you got to use headphones with it. It's right there in case you want to borrow it from me. You can borrow it. Right, not a whole number update either. It's a point update. Yes, 10.4.4 was not a whole number update. It was a point update. So was 10.4.9, which was also a good update. That's the one that brought us the customizable proxies and stuff. So 10.4.4 and 10.4.9 were both point updates, and both of them were more of an update than 10.5 and 10.6 were if you're counting the amount of features and stuff. So 10.6.2, it would be silly of Apple to release 10.6.2 with only bug fixes. That would be ridiculous. They already did that with 10.6.1. 10.6.2 comes out. This is my prediction. They're going to have bug fixes. Of course, they have performance increases, maybe optimized for the new Mac Studio Ultra, but they're going to have new features. And they're going to release it in proximity to NAB, in proximity to it, the week before, a day before, 2 days before. Remember when they released, where did they release ProRes RAW? NAB. Apple wasn't there releasing ProRes RAW. They released it, if I'm not mistaken, on the Monday of NAB 2018, 2017. Let me think. No, it wasn't 2019. 2017 or 2018, the Apple released ProRes RAW on the Monday of NAB. This is the kind they got, okay, it was all the buzz at NAB. It's one of the biggest things people talked about was ProRes RAW, ProRes RAW, ProRes RAW. If they release 10.6.2 and it has some cool features that editors want, not that iMovie editors want, but Final Cut Pro editors want, and it has some solid features, it once again will be a buzz at NAB. And even though Apple is not there, Final Cut Pro will have a presence because of the new update, and people will be talking about it, like me. I will be. I'll be looking everywhere for anybody that has Final Cut Pro stuff. Those point updates build to a bigger update, but you have to look at an update timeline to reasonably guess. You know what? I haven't been able to guess Apple very well in the last couple of years because they change things around. Like I said, the spring event is typically a consumer event, and then they bring out Mac Studio, which is definitely a pro machine. What are you going to do? They change things up. I bet there are hundreds of features that have been requested by all of the pro editors. There most certainly are. Of course there are. Absolutely. That is in great shape. It is. You mean my iPod, yeah. iMac 25th anniversary in 2023. Do you think Apple will recognize this milestone and release the 25th anniversary iMac in 2023 to replace the just discontinued? I think you'll see an iMac refresh before 2023. I think you'll see it this year. The only question is, I'm not sure what they're going to do with the screen. They could put the 24-inch one out with the M2 chip, but since they already have the 27-inch screen on the display, the technology is already there, right? On the new display Mac? No. Display Studio? Studio Display? No, it's a Mac Studio and Studio Display. They already have the 27-inch there. Put it in the iMac. I think it's an overhaul of the old storage feature. Okay, there you go. That makes sense. Why not Final Cut Pro 10.7? Because Apple has said pre-release version of Final Cut Pro 10.6.2. That's why I don't think 10.7. 10.7 may be for the fall, because in the fall, it'll be 1 year old since 10.6. But 10.6.2 has already been pre-announced. Well, I'm saying pre-announced. Apple has already publicly stated they've stated a pre-release version of Final Cut Pro 10.6.2. That's why I'm saying that's what's going to be done. This will be a major update, not a minor 10.6.x. Once again, 10.4.4 was a big update. It was a big update with lots of features. 10.4.9 was also a big update with lots of features. So don't think that a point update can't have features. It absolutely can have features. So it doesn't make sense for Apple to drib and drab a couple little features out with each update. At some point, they have to give us some features everybody's requesting and give us, like I said, if they gave us 4 solid features in 10.6.2, I'd be happy as long as they weren't the iMovie features. Don't give me those iMovie features and count those. No. Give us 4 solid features or more, or 5 or 6, that pro editors want and have been asking for, and the Final Cut Pro team knows about them because I've heard the Final Cut Pro team discussing them, and they know about them. Dupe detection, they've discussed it years ago. We know you want it. We know you want it. They're trying to figure out how to incorporate it, I guess. Collaboration. How many people have talked about collaboration with, nowadays, especially after COVID? The 27-inch iMac came out in 2007. Okay, there you go. It appears to me if we're going to bring some of OS mindset to iPad OS, iPhone OS, and the Mac OS production rather than narrowcast. In short, I think Apple is magic back if Apple ever lost it. Apple's getting its magic back if it ever lost it. Well, I don't think that Apple has lost their magic. I mean, the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 13, both of them, fantastic pieces of technology. Now, if you're talking about Final Cut Pro, that's a different story. They certainly have slowed down development of those two, of Final Cut Pro, over the last couple of years. I muted the mic, and now we're back. So let's wait and see what happens. I'm going to do couple more things. One of the other things that's happening right now, I want to bring this up before I forget, Arctic Whiteness, Final Cut Library Manager. Today is the last day you get 25% off from March the 3rd to the 10th. Today is the 10th, 2022. 8 years discount, complete pack, 25% off. All your libraries in just one window. So if you want to get 25% off, I like getting 25% off. Go head over to Arctic, A-R-C-T-I-C, whiteness.com. Final Cut Pro Library Manager. That's one of the things I wanted to talk about. Here's one more. So when I go to NAB, I need coffee. So I've opened up a page over here at buymeacoffee.com/Richard Taylor. And look, I've already got people buying me coffee. It's fantastic. People are buying me coffees so I can have them for NAB. Now, just buymeacoffee.com/Richard Taylor is the URL. Let me copy that. Let me go copy that. There we go. buymeacoffee.com/Richard Taylor, not Richard Taylor TV, just Richard Taylor. And buy me a coffee for NAB. Buy me a coffee if you want to support Final Cut Pro Radio. Buy me a coffee if you want to support these FCP live TVs. So going to NAB, as you can imagine, is expensive. And at this point, I don't have a sponsor specifically. I'm looking for a sponsor. But in the meantime, buy me a coffee, buy me 2 coffees, 3 coffees, whatever you like. It's not going to all go for coffee. I like bagels too. So some of it will go for bagels, coffee, might buy me a hamburger. It might pay for some other things while I'm there. I don't drink, so I'm a non-alcohol. I don't drink alcohol, so I won't be going for anything like that. But I might, go out to dinner with people and stuff. So buy me a coffee. I'm just saying for NAB, but it's for anything that you'd like to contribute to. So Brandon says, the new studio displays the same panel from the old 27-inch iMac. Is it really? Is that correct? It's the same display? Everything about it, the specs are the same? That seems odd because the iMac, 27-inch iMac is old, right? I'd be kind of surprised if that was the case. Mac Pro shipping by the end of the year. If the Mac Pro is going to ship in 2022, I think we will see it introduced at WWDC in June. If they plan on shipping it in 2022 or even early 2023, I think we will see it introduced at WWDC. In other words, they'll do a slideshow the same way they did with the original trash can Mac. They did it with the iPad, the iMac Pro. They did it with the Mac 2019 Mac Pro. They introduced them all at WWDC. And they said they're going to ship later this year. Well, the 2 Mac Pros shipped in December. I don't remember when the iMac Pro, I'm thinking it also shipped in December. So they introduced in June and they ship in December. So if WWDC sees the new iMac Pro introduced, it'll likely ship in December as well. Or they could say early 2023. They could say either way. Can I buy you a coffee with NAB in person? Absolutely. Absolutely. Just stop on. I'll be anywhere there's Final Cut Pro stuff at NAB, that's where I'm going to be. I'm going to be doing these live streams. I'm going to do them every day, multiple times a day. I'm going to start when I'm in the airport. I'm going to start when I get to the airport in Las Vegas. I'm going to do a lot of them. I'm going to make a playlist on YouTube, and the most current live stream will be at the top of the list. So when I get that set up, it'll be Final Cut TV live from NAB. And I'll make that playlist up, and all of my live streams will be there. The newest one will be at the top. I might come on for 10 minutes at the airport and talk about something. I might fire up one when I'm in a cab going from the airport to my hotel. Now, NAB starts on Sunday morning this year, not Monday morning. I don't know when Blackmagic is going to do their big presentation. They used to do it Monday morning. I don't know if they're still going to do it Monday morning or they're going to do it on Sunday. I don't know. Sunday night is the Super Meet. As far as I know, it's on Sunday night this year, not on Tuesday. It typically was on Tuesday, but this year it's on, I think, unless it changes, it's going to be Sunday night. So that'll be another big event. Coffee in the system is oil in the engine. I'm with you on the coffee thing, absolutely. It's basically just a way to support things that I do. Final Cut TV, Final Cut Pro Radio, the reporting live. It doesn't mean I'm going to drink necessarily that much coffee. I mean, this is my third cup for the day. Now, I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning. I usually get up between 3 and 4 a.m., but I go to bed very early. I go to bed at 8 o'clock, and then I get up at 3. If the clock says 3, I'll get up. So anytime from between 3 and 4, I'll get up no matter what it is. Because once I'm up there, I just might as well get up. And I get up and make coffee, and I feed the cats. Let's go over to the cat room and see if there's any cats over there. Oh, yeah, there we go. There the cats are. There's the two in front that are cleaning each other, the two tan ones. The tan and white one is Tuffy. The one that's all orange that he has his leg around right now, that is Lucinda. The gray cat in the middle is yeah, I forgot his name. Isn't that weird? Luther. I was going to say something else. Luther is the gray cat in the middle. And at the cat all the way at the end that is sleeping, that is Miss Amanda Jones. She's the last cat we have. All these cats are rescues. All these cats are rescues that showed up on our property, and we took them in and we get them shots and get them spayed and neutered and all that. And now they're living the life of luxury in their own room there, the cat room. This is the front window. They like the front window because the sun shines in there in the morning. But there you go. There's our cats, 3 or 4 of our cats. So anyway, I think we're good. I sneezed just looking at the cats. Allergic. Yeah, I'm allergic to other things. I'm allergic to politics. There's what I'm allergic to. So cats, I'm not allergic to at all. Dogs, it doesn't make any difference if I was. I'm a big animal advocate for all kinds of animals. I work with wildlife rescues in the area. I do promo videos for them. I do cat rescues. I do dog rescues. I help with horse rescues. Any of the animals, I try to help them as much as I possibly can. That's my thing. What else do we have here? Anything else we have? Not there. Not there. So anyway, Mac Mini, M2 Mac Mini, I'm saying. Let me turn this off. I'm not sure why Twitter always puts up just a one-line thing when I go live. But anyway, if you had the choice right now and you had the M2 Mac Mini, or you had the Mac Studio, higher price point, but more horsepower, which would you go for? I guess it depends on what the M2 does. I guess that's a logical choice, right? It would be for me. It would be for me. All right, I think that's just about it for today. Mac Mini, Arctic Whiteness, we covered that. There's some other people talking on let me see what this gentleman says. Oh, he just said, we already got that comment. So, yeah, so here's what I'm saying. In the fall, Mac event, an Apple event, an Apple Mac event in the fall, October or November, or a combination. A new Mac Mini with the M2 chipset, probably a new iMac with the M2 chipset, 14-inch iMac Pro with the new M2 chipset. I would be shocked, pleasantly, if the Mac Pro came out in 2022. I just don't think so. I'll have the Studio in a minute. Listen, that Studio looks fantastic, doesn't it? I mean, I wasn't expecting that much power in a size like that. In that form factor, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. I have some couple notes here I'm checking on. I think I'm just about caught up for today. So yeah, the Mac Studio and the Mac Mini, the M2 Mac Mini, not an M1 Mac Mini, the M2 Mac Mini. I'm not the M1. The introduction of the chipset, I need more FireWire. If I keep saying FireWire, I need more Thunderbolt ports than 2. I need more than that. So with my MacBook Pro right now, I have 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports. But of those 3, I do not have to use one for power because I have a power port. And I don't have to use one for HDMI dongle because I have an HDMI port. And I don't have to use one for an XD card slot because an XD card dongle because I have the card slot. So I have 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports available. I have one hooked up to the OWC dock, and that splits up into 3 more plus 3 USB 3 ports, 3.2 ports. And these are the OWC dock. I have the Thunderbolt 4 one, so that works. I am connected to 3 RAID 5s, a 56 terabyte and 2 12 terabyte RAID 5s at the same time. I'm hooked up to 2 displays. I have the LG and I have a smaller one on the right-hand side over there. I'm hooked up to my United audio interface. I have a Stream Deck connected. I have what else do I have connected? I have the Cam Link going to this camera connected, all to my MacBook Pro. And when I forget where I was in one of the groups or whatever, and I mentioned that I have all these things hooked up. I have RAIDs, I have audio interfaces, I have Stream Deck, and I have monitors. And the person said, that's a good way to tether your MacBook Pro. It's nothing to do with tethering it. I unplug 2 cables, 3 cables, and I take it. Everything else stays behind. It's not tethered. It's not, stationary. This is why I like this. This is going to NAB with me. And if we have the Creative Summit in the fall, I'll be there most likely. And it'll go there so I can do these live streams with my MacBook rather than with an iPad or an iPhone. That's much more limiting. I have much more options doing them with the MacBook Pro. So I take the MacBook Pro with me and I stream live from there. Absolutely. I appreciate everybody stopping by today. Don't forget, buymeacoffee.com. You can stop over there and buy me a coffee. Anytime between now and NAB, I'll need coffee for sure. I'm off to a great start over there, but I also use it for other things. This Ecamm Live is a subscription service. I go to Restream. That's also a subscription service. These are just for these live streams. So if I had enough, I would pay for some of that. I'm on Libsyn for the podcast, for the Final Cut Pro Radio podcast. I'm paying for that out of pocket. I don't have any sponsors. In the past for NAB, the last times I've been in NAB, except for the last time, was the last time or not? I don't remember, but LumaForge sponsored me in the past, but because of the way things went with them and they got bought up by OWC, they don't sponsor anymore, but they did for years, and that's because of Sam Messman. He's the one who hooked me up there because he was the CEO, or he was the CEO or whatever. So anyway, the other thing is that Future Media Concepts is going to be starting this training for Final Cut Pro coming out, and that should be happening at any point. They're going to announce that. And I think that's it. NAB is the next big thing coming up. We will have at least 1, if not 2, NAB specials going forward. If there's any other live news, for example, I'm saying that the Final Cut Pro update is coming out in April. I'm thinking it would be smart if they released it closer to NAB rather than 2 weeks ahead or 3 weeks before NAB. But whenever they announce it, that's fine. Doesn't really make any difference. But I'm just saying from a marketing standpoint, the closer you release it to NAB, the better the buzz is at NAB about Final Cut Pro. I'm only going there for Final Cut Pro stuff. That's the main reason. And Blackmagic, too. I really like Blackmagic. I think they're a great company. Other people, too. Okay? LumaFusion, they're my friends. I have a lot of friends in the iPhone ecosystem, a lot of friends there for different things. Filmic Pro, of course, is a great app. I use it all the time. But I'll stop around and see different people. It's not going to be as big as it was in 2019, which was the last one I think that I went to, 2019. I mean, for example, 2019, we had the Faster Together stage that took over the Supermeet time slot on Tuesday night. I don't think there's anything dedicated to Final Cut Pro so far that I know of. No third party is doing any Final Cut Pro specific stuff. They might do a few things, but if there's an update coming, we'll have to see what happens. I also covered the Future Media Concepts, Future Media Conferences. They had some kind of a party on Sunday night. I also covered that live. I was streaming live from there. I talked to Ronnie Cortins, and Philip Hodgetts was there. Last time I stopped and talked to Patrick Southern, who used to work for LumaForge. Now he's with Frame.io, who was bought out by Adobe or Microsoft or somebody like that. I'm not sure. Bought out by somebody big, so it's not Final Cut Pro. It doesn't really interest me as much as it used to when it was more Final Cut Pro. They were more independent, but we'll see what happens with all that stuff. It'll all sort itself out. All right, everybody, I guess we're done here for today. So I'm not sure who won. Mac Mini? Did the Mac Mini win with M2, or did the Mac Studio win? I think the Mac Studio won so far because people don't know what the M2 is going to do. We don't know what it's going to do, but it's coming. iMac with M2, Mac Mini with M2, if you can wait. It's not coming out tomorrow. It's coming out probably in the fall. So if you need a Mac today, this Mac Studio is a great, great piece of hardware to get. You can always sell it down the road or trade it in, whatever you want to do. Absolutely. I'm very satisfied with my MacBook Pro. Very, very satisfied. This is by far the best MacBook Pro I've had since I started buying them again in 2016. This is a really nice machine, and I'll look forward to updating it when the new M2 version comes out. Probably, they're not going to come out this in 2022. It'll probably be 2023. I'd like to get at least 2 years worth of use out of my MacBook Pro. 2 or 3 would be fine. All right, everyone. My name is Richard Taylor. You can buy me a coffee.com/Richard Taylor. And of course, this is Final Cut TV, and there'll be a new version of Final Cut Pro Radio out. The podcast that I've had forever, 1.3 million podcast downloads between my two podcasts. We're headed towards 1.3 million downloads. And that's it. You had any questions? Follow along on Twitter, Richard Taylor TV, YouTube, Richard Taylor TV, Facebook, Richard Taylor TV, Twitch TV, Richard Taylor TV. That's for gaming, but I've still got an account over there. And I will see everybody the next time we go live if there's an update.